Hi, I'm Richard Bounds. Welcome to Funnel Vision, a new podcast hosted by myself and Leo Rogers. We'll be discussing all things sales and technology, including the impact of AI and where sales will be heading for the future. We've got excellent guests, leaders from companies such as IBM, Software AG, Google, Salesforce, together with thought leaders who are running their own successful businesses, consulting, training, and bringing change within sales. I really hope you enjoy the podcast. Thank you for joining. In this episode, we cover a range of topics. We've got fantastic guests as we're joined by Mike Slater of the Carlyle Group, but has held a number of C-level positions throughout his career. Helen Kaliski, UKI Google Cloud Managing Director, currently board advisor within a number of businesses. With Gavin Kowalski, who runs his own coaching and training business around sales development as on the back of obviously a successful sales career. Dan Wardle, who runs Rampart Go-to-Market, but also found a sales club, coming from a teaching, training and sales leadership backgrounds, got some really excellent insights, as well as Paul Sullivan, who brings a slightly different perspective looking at the overall go-to-market strategy, and Erland Asker, who's held senior leadership positions more from a professional services slant and has got really great experience and insights of big ticket sales. I think you'll enjoy. Thank you. With new technology coming in, what are kind of the biggest things that have changed over kind of sales from when you started through more recently to today?
Well, I think we were joking about that in one of our previous calls, weren't we, about the change that happened? Because I remember going from, BT phone cards to mobile phones and see the first big, black box mobile phone in the boot of someone's car when that first came out. So, but I think more recently, I think probably of late, it's really the shift to consumption-based selling. Yeah, so it's gone from the perpetual model was so prevalent for so many years, and it was all about that big license deal, wasn't it? And the maintenance revenue would flow from there. And now it's all about annual recurring revenue. So, the idea that your long-term success as a vendor is all about getting those renewals, those customer renewals after a 3 to 5 year period when the term runs out. So things like customer success is more important these days. I think that's probably the biggest shift. And
it's a great combination of the teaching as well as teaching skills with sales skills as well, isn't it? So you're in a fortunate position. I was going to be a PE teacher as well, but I know that you said you were a PE teacher, but I kind of never followed through on that. I just went straight into sales. But there we go. Obviously, lots changed. Even when you joined Multiverse, and obviously now working with a lot of smaller companies with founders for early stage, etc. What kind of like the biggest challenges that you see?
Well, I think it's when I was at Multiverse, we were selling technical training, and one of the biggest challenges there, away from sales teams, was people spending lots of money on technology, changing their processes to fit this new technology, but then not enabling and empowering their teams to make the most out of it. And we were selling a lot of technical training off the back of that. And really all I've done is kind of port that approach over to sales, because one of the biggest challenges I see is all of this fantastic technology out there. We know we should be doing something with it as sales leaders, but giving clear clarity over, well, what is it that we're actually trying to achieve with this tool as a solution? Yeah. And what's the best practice in the way that we use it, and how can we enable our teams to use it? So I think one of the biggest challenges is clarity on the skills required in the age of AI, and as well as the enablement to empower people to use the tools as well.
Okay, and obviously, like sort of AI has been around for a long period of time, but it seems to be on a massive hype cycle kind of at the moment. Are you seeing how AI is impacting sales teams today, and any sort of practical examples of how it's either helping or hindering?
I think there's a lot to learn from a seller perspective. You've got to have a growth mindset and a learning mindset. Certainly AI for sellers can lead to higher productivity. You just remember back to all the research, the time spent researching customers, researching companies, researching the person you were going to talk to, researching the person you were going to present to, and then all the grunt work, all the admin. AI can really help a lot of that. If you look at, just ChatGPT deep research or Gemini, can really help save so much time on these things. And also difficult emails, or complicated emails, and, AI can really help with that. And so just free up time. And so allowing sellers to spend more time thinking about and actually doing the selling. Having said that, I think that, it's incumbent on sellers now that have to add value from the first moment. They have to be adding value and showing they're adding value to their sophisticated buyer.
And if you sort of look at the real pros and negatives, I guess the negatives is the noise and the blitzing, and the pros are the productivity, signal capture, being more intelligent about the use of AI and supporting, throughout the sales cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And then there's just trying to make sure that people don't just do vanilla things like just go onto ChatGPT and say, write me a sequence. I mean, that is definitely not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That is still was just generic as anyone else. But I still feel from if you've got the right assets, you attach the right files, here's a product guide or whatever you might be getting. Here's our persona profile. Here's our brand tone of voice. I mean, if you put those three documents into the LLM and then ask it your questions, that's to me is being smart, right? You've got everything that you need to give you the essence of what you want. And even if you've got like really good understanding of your customers, look at Gong or one of those other tools or whatever you might be recording to understand why you're winning deals. If you go back into your CRM and just extract a segment and say, this segment, we typically win deals for this reason. Why don't I upload that into that communication? Say, build me a sequence for these people based on this product who generally convert on these outcomes, and build me a nurture sequence that's going to kind of help me reach out. Now you've got really, really narrow, and it's probably taken you 40 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Thinking about like toolkits and so on as well. So like it used to be that you're a new seller, you get your LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you obviously get access to CRM, maybe the sort of the e-learning type tool. But what does that kind of toolkit consist of now for you and the companies you're working with?
Well, for my own business, I'm very fortunate in that I'm a one-man band on the Rampart side of things, and I've grown entirely by referral and inbound. And so for small companies like the one that I run, I'm very much a believer in one problem, one solution, one customer, one channel gets you to £1 million. So I'm really trying to live that as much as I preach it, and focus entirely on the Founder Sales Club side as well on partnerships and referrals as a kind of my route to growth. When it comes to other businesses, the businesses who I work with who are slightly later stage, it does come with a lot of enablement platforms, certainly AI powered outbound tools and tracking tools, removing a lot of the research time, the data entry, a lot of the stuff that was taking sellers away from selling. And I think in general, we're going to see this move towards how do we maximize the time of our sellers selling, and how do we reduce the size of our sales team so that we're hiring fantastic, well-paid people who are going to keep closing and spend most of their time selling and closing higher ticket deals. And kind of, I think you will see a churn. I think you will see a churn in a lot of sales teams. I don't think a lot of sales teams need to be as big as they currently are.
Okay. AI always brings a bit of a kind of ethical type discussion. Particularly if you've got, maybe you're capturing conversations, you've got you're sitting in on customer meetings, you've got salespeople being judged potentially through AI tooling, etc. What's your thought on that?
Oh, there's a couple of things to break down in there. I think if we talk to the general ethics, I think one of the biggest challenges we now face, and it's at an international level, is sovereign AI. I don't know if you've heard this language being talked about, but because of Trump, everyone is really worried about how people are gathering information to train their AI models. You know, he's just passed the law that's, well, there's no governance on AI for 10 years. I mean, that was a bit of a wow. So now everyone's like, well, do I want to have all my data in an Anthropic or Claude LLM database and exposed to the US when I don't know how the US are going to behave with any of that data? And so now people are looking at sovereigns, so coming home, having, you know, I've heard people talk about data centers now, old school data centers being brought back to offices so that people can on-prem their AI models and come off of these like Amazon style AI services, even though these same big companies are now trying to offer on-prem. The sense is, well, if it's a US government organization, what is my risk and exposure to that? And I wrote an article on that on my blog. And then, you know, that talks to kind of like the ethics and exposure piece there.
Yeah.
And then if you look at AI to govern salesperson's performance, I feel like what I think is where do you start with that? If you're just looking for a number of activities a salesperson is performing, I think aren't we going away from what we're supposed to do? I mean, salespeople should be judged on their outcomes at all times, right? So that's why it's all performance based, right? You can have good months and bad months, but what you don't want is someone sort of like some AI machine saying this guy's no good because, I don't know, he's had 2 bad quarters or something. I mean, there's a number of reasons why. It's more like how are we using AI to spot these types of things early, and then give said sales rep the tools to improve, whether that's through training. And I think that's a really smart thing, you know, if you've
Yeah.
got that sales enablement piece and you can hear how someone performs, and then the AI is able to maybe pick out certain calls. I mean, this would be cool. You can pick out a call that where you're suffering is going, look, these are good examples of where of the closing piece, and you need to learn more with these. That would be great, right? If it could just deliver that. So open for it for improvements and analysis, but I don't want it to be a beating stick to people that might have other issues that are not sort of work based, impacting their work performance.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm with you with that. I think if it can be used to like drive improvements and deliver intelligence is super powerful.
Yeah,
Probably the next extension of kind of like data-driven sales leadership, isn't
yeah,
it? And it's being focused on sellers being measured on outcomes, but also I think you do want to have a factor around behaviors and work ethics and attitude and stuff like that. And some of that you can't quite capture with data, but maybe AI might be able to help with some bits of that, but it's still got to come down to uh, personal perspective around the things we're just speaking about. So no, it's interesting.
100%.
Yeah, without wishing to sound like two sort of middle-aged guys talking about sales and how it's changed and so on. And I know you're younger than me, but what do you think's been kind of the biggest change in sales in the time we've been in this arena?
I mean, there's so many. It's difficult to pin any one thing down. But what I would say is that, you know, I think sales cycles are much more complex than they ever used to be. You've got decreased customer responsiveness, information overload, a lot of pressure to do more with less, and people don't buy for fun anymore. I remember the days when we used to call up someone who we had a good relationship with and ask them for a favour. Can they get a deal done for us within a quarter, or buy something because it's the end of the year? Those days are gone, long gone, and not one person makes a decision anymore. And so if you think about the current economic pressures in particular, value selling or ROI selling is more necessary than ever. Before, I think it was just a best practice, but now it's a must-have way of approaching. And I think buyers are definitely more switched on, so they expect personalization rather than that used to be a differentiation. They
Yeah.
expect you to understand them, and then you got all the other complexities like increased governance and which you never had before, which can add months to a sales cycle.
Okay. And what about kind of the future of selling? Do you see that some of the sales process or some of the sales jobs will be lost to AI? Maybe similarly to certain aspects of customer service have been automated? Do you see that happening to selling jobs?
I kind of do. I don't. So when I think about the kind of SDR, AE, CS kind of balance, that kind of, an individual that, finds business, an individual that closes business, then an individual that kind of manages the revenue and the life cycle. When I see that kind of model, I see that kind of breaking down. And actually, I think there was some stats from Ebster in their benchmark earlier this year, with support from Pavilion, around most businesses starting to return to kind of full sales cycle rather than the sales cycle being broken down. I think we're going to see, and I've got a lot of sort of friends and people I highly respect in the kind of SDR BDR world, but I think we will see less SDRs and BDRs. I'm not sure they'll go, but I think there'll be less of them as some of the tasks become kind of automated, and you can make those individuals more productive per head. And I think account executives are going to be asked to do more of their own prospecting, which they, in my view, they should be doing already, and more of the kind of management of ongoing revenue to support upsell and cross-sell, because I think a lot of that customer delivery, customer success side, again, can be automated via AI and just dealt with by exception.
Yeah. Okay. So in essence, it goes back a little bit to what you said. More time customer facing, more processes automated to support that, and supporting more of a kind of a full cycle, business development, but also some of the upsell, cross-sell scenarios as well.
I think so. And I think SaaS, for example, as an example, is becoming like very, very saturated. There are a lot, every other day there's a new SaaS product, and I think there's a lot of features out there masquerading as product, which probably can just be rolled into kind of other platforms. As a result of that, I think you're going to find that the individuals that go into tech sales are going to need to be not just of a higher caliber, because I think there's a lot of high capable people in there already, but they're going to have to do more. They're going to have to leverage the tools, and probably most importantly, they're going to have to be less product focused and spend more time thinking about their customer and what their customer needs and what their customer wants. And individuals that do that leverage AI to understand what the customer's trying to achieve, that put the customer first, and that are capable and happy to do kind of the full range from cradle to grave of selling. I think they're going to be the top billers, the top earners as we go into the second half of this decade and on into the 2030s.
Yeah. As a matter of interest, because you sound like you're working in advisory capacity with small and medium-sized companies, and obviously a lot of your history has been with the very biggest companies. Do you see like sort of adoption of AI consistent across all of them, or are the bigger companies more advanced, or even smaller companies I'm seeing I kind of feel could be maybe more advanced, but I don't know what you think.
I think it depends on the appetite of the company to adopt AI. So, because there will be some companies where AI can't be used, but I think everyone's racing to adopt AI and use AI. I think what's really important though is that if you're going to use AI, that you've got a good set of data. Your data is in order and your data is in a good place. I think it's always also really important that you've got a good use case. So you've got a use case where you can see and you'll be able to realise the benefits or not, and really test whether your AI is working. And the other is you've got to have a growth mindset. You've got to have everyone in your organisation to have a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, the big companies have more ability to embrace it. They have more time. They have more things at their fingertips in order to make the most of AI. But then I would say there are smaller companies which maybe startups or scale ups or have more of a growth mindset. So
yes, the top performing salespeople, those that adopt and they adapt to the new methods of working, and they use that kind of intelligence to personalize their stories for their customers, and they make everything hyper relevant for their audience, and they question with deep discovery, etc., are going to be cool. And then do you see kind of at the lower end, you mentioned obviously those jobs maybe dissipating. Do you think some of that will be automated and AI and tech will take some of those roles, or where will they go?
I think I almost think of it as it's the death of the C player, is the way that I would put it. So whereas before you might have 10 reps, 100k target, and they're all on, let's say, 60k, you might have 5 reps on a 200, 300k target on 100k, right?
Yeah.
And you're basically saving on commission, and those people are empowered to go and sell. I think sales leaders are becoming wise to passengers in their team, and so and when you only have 6 reps, you probably only need 1 manager. You don't need 2. So how can we get those A players, maybe B players, who we can coach up to be enabled with AI, so they spend most of their time selling, increase their targets, but give them all of the fantastic leads, because we know A players are more likely to close those leads and close them for larger deals, so we don't burn through our addressable market. And we have kind of slower, more predictable growth, which I think in a post-zero interest rate period is something that a lot of investors, founders, boards are looking for.
Okay. And is there anything that you're sort of seeing out there that maybe not many other people are talking about so much as kind of a potential?
I think there are I've got sort of 2 health warnings ish.
Right.
One is I've seen companies, sales operations department rush to use AI and to help forecasting and help decision makers. And everyone is on a learning journey, right? So and mistakes get made. So you just have to be really careful that you are testing it and not necessarily making decisions off the bat based on the data you see from AI.
Yeah.
It needs time to bed in, and it needs to be tested, right? Because it can lead to bad decisions, I think, if you're not careful. The other thing I've seen is customers adopting AI in order to help productivity. So productivity can help reduce the amount of headcount you might need for a particular job. And I've seen CFOs race to bed that into a business plan or a budget.
Yeah.
And again, my advice would be just be a little bit careful and give it a little bit more time, I think, than maybe businesses want.
Yeah. And is that, if you were thinking of like one big deal hack that every seller should do, is it that what's the problem we're fixing, what's the size of the problem, etc., link it back, or is there something else that you would say as your one deal hack?
Linked to that, it's always have a hypothesis.
Okay.
If it's a first meeting, have you done your research? And do you have a hypothesis of what the cost risk revenue, what their strategy is, what the cost risk revenue challenge is that you might be solving, and how you link that to your product, service, or solution? Go in with that hypothesis, have that as the first agenda point, get them to tell you where you're right, where you're wrong, where you've missed stuff, what's important, what's not important. And then the second meeting, improve on that hypothesis based on what you've heard, and that's the first agenda point in the next meeting. So focus on the problem that you're solving and linking it to their strategy and cost, risk, and revenue by doing the homework first. Always better to guide and be told that you're wrong than just to ask, who cares about that? Much better to ask, usually the CTO cares about that. Is that Alex?
Yeah.
Much better to ask that question and guide and do your research first. So number one deal hack, have a hypothesis. Do your research, have a hypothesis, put that at the center of your deal, and it will uncover not only is there a problem worth solving, but are we speaking to the people who can speak that language? If not, we need to go and find people who can.
Yeah, and it gives you a bit more credibility rather than just asking questions and questions and questions, which people can get a bit tired of quite quickly, can't they?
Absolutely.
So, really
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean,
Okay.
I've had hypotheses that I've taken to calls all the way from the very, very worst that's ever happened is they've looked at it and gone, that's wrong. It's based off last year's annual report. We've got a new annual report coming out in two weeks' time. Let me tell you why it's wrong and what it actually looks like now. Great, I still get what I need. All the way through to, that's amazing. Can I have that document and share it with my team because you put our problems better than anyone else has? Which, you know, toot my own horn a little bit, but great, you can absolutely have that document because it's got our logo all over it.
Yeah. Okay. No, perfect. And from a career perspective, anything, you know, looking back that you'd perhaps do a bit differently?
God, yes. There's probably a number of things there, Richard. But I probably should have listened more sooner in my career. I thought I had to have all the answers when I was early in my career, and I think the longer you stay in this business, the longer you realise what you don't know. There's more out there. It's like with anything, you know. Once you start to delve into a subject, you think, yeah, you know, you start to gain knowledge, but then you figure out there's a whole lot of stuff that you don't know about that subject, right?
Yeah.
The more detail you get into. So then I kind of switched to thinking it's more about having the right questions. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So if you were, again, just giving your tips to somebody new, the number one thing would be listen more and ask more. Okay.
Absolutely.
But do you have a favourite deal of all time and why?
I do. Stringfellow's Angels. I sold Peter Stringfellow and his team mobile phones back in the mid-noughties, and that was a cold call into his accountant. His accountant just happened to be opening the Vodafone bill at the time. I was able to set up a meeting, and that became actually phone by phone, because Peter spent a lot of time on his yacht in Mallorca. That became one of the most profitable per user accounts O2's ever had. So that was a particular favourite of mine.
Okay, and that was an in-person meeting, was it, on the yacht?
Yeah.
One of the
Well, no, I didn't meet Peter until after we closed the deal, and I had to go in and set up his voicemail. And his fiance at the time, then became wife, Bella, used to phone me and ask me questions about how to retrieve voicemails and stuff like that. It was quite funny. My wife would wonder why Peter Stringfellow's fiance was calling me. So
yeah, I can imagine she might. You've had an excellent career. As we said before, lots of senior positions, different types of companies and so on. Is there anything you'd have done differently as you look at it now?
I mean, there'll be many things that I would have done differently. I think things that I've learned from as a leader are, you know, when you know someone's not going to work out, then you should act, you know, sooner rather than later. It's not fair to that individual to allow it to carry on, and very rare that it turns around. It's not impossible, but it's very, very rare. But probably, you know, the biggest sort of mistake I made that impacted my career in a way that maybe I wouldn't have chosen is where I made a commitment to a quarter number that I didn't believe in, but my boss made me commit. And you know, I ended up achieving what I thought I'd achieve, but it was way short of what my boss was pressurizing me to forecast. So my advice to anybody is, if you take ownership for what it is you're doing, but don't take somebody else's number if you haven't got a path to achieving that. It's a strategy of hope, and sales is more complex than hope.
I do sometimes think we forget that sales is fun, and occasionally end of quarter we really very often forget that. But is there kind of something, you know, maybe the funniest story or most epic fail that you've had in your career that would be entertaining for anyone listening?
Oh, epic fail. That's a bit mean.
I
have
a funny story then. Yeah.
Back in the early days of e-commerce, I sold an e-commerce solution to a well-known retailer.
Right.
These were early days, right? So, so the tech could, you know, we were testing the tech, really, the technology. And we were super focused on making sure that the website would stay up and be able to handle demand. And the key moment was that this company was launching a brand of clothes in conjunction with Kate Moss.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the product was going onto the website at 3 a.m. So we were all pulling an all-nighter to make sure that the website stayed up and that they could launch and everything, and that we didn't fall over and the commerce didn't fail and all this, because there was so much focus on this. So everyone was on alert. And what we didn't predict, though, was by 6 a.m. in the morning, it totally sold out.
Oh, really?
The website stayed up, everything worked beautifully, everything was gone by 6 a.m.
Wow. Okay. So was that considered like a massive success? Because everything was gone, I guess.
I think it was a massive success from our perspective. From my perspective, it was a massive success. I think for the retailer, it was like, hang on a minute, we underestimated the demand here. Yeah, so they left money on the table, I think they would have thought. But the tech really proved itself.
Do you, roughly when was that? Just
No, it's too many years ago, Richard, for me to want to remember.
okay. Right, we'd say it's more than 5. So that's
More than 5. Yes, definitely.
more than 5. But
Definitely more than 5.
okay. Fantastic, Helen. That's all, folks. That's the end of our first episode of Funnel Vision. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be releasing further deeper dives with each of the guests you've seen today, as well as recording new and future episodes. Some will be hosted by me, others in the future will also be hosted by my co-host Leo Rogers. Feel free to contact both of us via email or LinkedIn. We look forward to engaging with you, hearing further insights, and we're on the lookout for further guests as well. You can also see us on YouTube, and we have our own funnelvision.ai microsite. So please look out for notifications and please register your interest with us. We look forward to hearing from you, and hopefully you look forward to hearing from us. Thank you.